Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. We are Fox News affiliates. You can also find us syndicated on Abundant Television. That's found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com and all the social media sites when they don't take me off. I got a feeling we'll be taking off shortly. Just had an interview with Alan Mendenhall, and probably take me off of that and off of YouTube as well. So anyway, they'll let me back on good behavior. I've been in jail with them several times, but anyway, it's all in good fun. I'll continue sending emails, by the way. Makes my day. Donna@donnasedge.com. Donna@donnasedge.com. And I'll just tell you that makes my day when I receive those. You are not bothering me at all. Let's go ahead and get started. I have Michael Miabach with me today, and I've been really looking forward to this interview. Michael, we have a mutual friend, Alan Mendenhall, who is on the show monthly, been on the show with me for several years now. But I've been just really anxious to talk with you. And you and I are on the same wavelength here on a lot of things. So let's go ahead and get started. Tell me about you.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I wish I could say I grew up in the South, but I didn't. I grew up in Southern Illinois. At least it was Southern Illinois.
South, yeah.
Not Chicago. And I spent most of my career in international business. I worked for the founders of the Intel Corporation and led their global government affairs. And then I was president of the European American Business Council with offices in Washington and Brussels. So when I left my business career, I decided that civic education had a deep need. As you know, we have the best and oldest constitution in the world, but our schools don't teach it in the same way they used to, and very often not with a little bit of love about our founders. And of course, we are so fortunate to have this country and our freedoms. And the Constitution is one of the main reasons, and of course, our nature. So I give speeches around the country for free, defending the Electoral College, which is a good excuse, Donna, to walk through the entire design of the Constitution and its checks and balances, which is what keeps us free.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. But I wanted to mention something about school and the things that are being taught or not being taught in school anymore. I've noticed the brightest kids around are the ones who are homeschooled. And I think it's because the parents are able to teach what they want their children to know. Mm-hmm. What is your idea on why cursive handwriting is not being taught in schools anymore? Could it have anything to do with those old documents that were written in cursive?
So two things. One, on homeschooling, respectfully, I think the central reason it's so effective is because the children know how much their parents care about them. A priest of mine at a Catholic school where I attended in Peoria, Illinois, asked us, what's the best thing you can do for your children? And we started guessing, some of the boys, send them to college, make them play sports, whatever. We had all these ideas. And he said, no, the best thing you can do for your children is to love their mother, because then they'll know not only they'll feel secure, but they'll see what love looks like. And homeschooling, people feel secure and they see what love looks like every day. So I think homeschooling is a wonderful thing. Now on cursive, I think it's gone by the wayside because of these dreaded devices, these screens that we have. People gone to typing with their thumbs and a couple of fingers rather than handwriting. There's nothing more wonderful than a fountain pen on a piece of paper. It's a really living thing. It's a part of a tree, and ink from whatever the source of the ink is. So Here in Virginia, the legislature, to their great credit, and the governor signed a bill taking away all the devices in schools. So no cell phones during school. I think that's a real plus.
I think that's positive. I do. But is there another reason for this? Because of the founding documents are cursive, their handwriting.
Yeah, you may be right. I think when history is taught today, they don't even want to think about those documents in a way other than to try to find flaws in our founders themselves, and therefore undermine the legitimacy of these documents.
Alert has arrived.
When I give speeches around the country, I originally, Donna, used to start at the Constitutional Convention. But the first time I did that at Bradley University, a young lady stood up at the end of the talk and said, "What I don't like about the founders, they didn't give women the right to vote." And then another student said, "Well, they invented slavery in 1619 in Virginia." And as if the New Testament wouldn't remind them of where slavery has been forever. Mm-hmm. So now I start my speeches with pictures of paintings of world leaders in 1776, Catherine the Great in Russia, and Louis XVI in France, and emperors of China and Japan, and Charles in Spain, and George III. And then I show paintings of slave markets in the Old Testament, Moses, the Egyptian slave markets, the African slave trade was robust, and all the rest. And then I say, look, the founders were born in a world full of tyranny, slavery, and poverty. And they dug themselves out of that hole of history the best they could to establish prosperity, which we can talk about, and establish liberty. Slavery, they thought would die out, honestly, and they did not confront it because it was so embedded in so many. Slaves were in every state, not just the South. Every state had slaves. And New York had more slaves than Georgia during the founding. But what happened was the cotton gin was invented, I believe, 1809, and that mechanized slavery, and that was a big surprise. And then we had to, go through a civil war to end that institution, as they call it. But we did, and to their credit, and with the same Constitution. Although we amended the Constitution to improve things for everyone.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned women's rights. I feel like the past administration took away women's rights when we started letting boys play on girls' sports.
Yeah.
That doesn't jive with me.
Yeah, I have two sisters, and I always knew that I was just stronger than them. It just, I wasn't allowed to touch them, of course. My father said, you never hit a girl, and there's a reason for that. It is really quite stunning. There are just boys and girls, and that's it. And this is pretty fundamental to life. But the good news is the current administration is enforcing Title IX and saying that we have Title IX because we wanted to have girls' sports, and we wanted to have full funding for girls' sports. And then to have boys cross over and say we're going to take these sports over is really quite an affront. And you kind of wonder why some women's rights groups don't stand up and holler, don't you? But they're confused, unfortunately. That is always with us. So there's always confusion in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
About the Electoral College, let's explain to folks out there who may not quite understand it.
Yeah. Well, the Electoral College is a solution to a problem, not a problem. Mm-hmm. The founders spent 116 days without air conditioning and all the shades drawn in the Assembly Hall at Independence Hall to write what is now the world's oldest Constitution. They decided on the House and the Senate. That was the big deal. The Connecticut Compromise, 2 senators for every state in the House by population. And that was the only reason we have a Constitution is because of that compromise. They debated and could not decide until the last week of the convention how to elect the president. They had read their Aristotle and about the mixed regime. They had read Montesquieu, 1748, Spirit of the Laws, and they wanted to have checks and balances. So how to have an independent executive so that they could check the other branches and vice versa. If the Congress would have elected the president, like the British Parliament was electing their prime minister, the president would be a toady or a tool of the Congress. They would have to do whatever the Congress said, and we'd have legislative tyranny, right? If you had national popular vote, well, 4 of the states had most of the people. Virginia had 10 times the population of Georgia, for example, and Philadelphia was the largest city, then New York, Boston, and I think it was Charleston. And so they argued about it. They had a committee of 11, it was called, and they decided we'll have election by the states, and then we'll aggregate them. It's kind of like the World Series or a tennis match or the Super Bowl, which is we'll have an election in each state, could be by the legislature or the people. Then because they have electors equal to their numbers in the Congress, they will aggregate those. If you think about it, the Electoral College is the recreation of the U.S. Congress for one day, for one purpose, because there are, for example, in Virginia here, we have 11 House members and 2 senators, so we have 13 electors. Well, 13 members of Congress, but we have 13 electors every 4 years. I was elector in Virginia last year and 4 years ago, elected by my party. The electors are elected by their parties, so Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Greens, I don't know, whatever the parties are. And then whoever wins the election, they go to the state capitol 4 weeks after the election and they vote, right? And there's reasons why they did it that way. And then 4 weeks after that, they count those votes in the Congress, and that's in January. And so it's sort of 4 weeks system, very methodical. There's a lot of method to the Constitution: 2-year House elections, 4-year presidential elections, 6-year Senate. And so we have sort of a majority rule in an iterative process. So I hope that's helpful in understanding how the Electoral College came about. It works pretty well.
Can that be compromised? And if so, how can it be compromised?
Well, only 17 states have a law that require that the electors have to be faithful. In other words, do whatever the voters say. But we've only had a handful of people, maybe 9 or 10, do that. And one of the reasons is because if electors ever change the election by doing that, they would be the most unpopular of people. All their friends would desert them, their neighbors. They would be famous the way that young man was famous when he caught that fly ball in Chicago Cubs game, and he had to leave the state of Illinois. But anyway, electors are elected by their party, as I was, and the first, I talked to 600 people on the phone before the convention, the voters that elected me. I got 512 votes out of 600, and everyone asked one question: will you be faithful to the vote of our state, period? And you give your word. So it's sort of an honor system, and it's worked. It's worked really in all the elections we've had. Faithless electors have never been a problem. And 2 Supreme Court cases 4 years ago sort of solidify their obligation to follow the voters by and large. So the only other way would be to try to amend the Constitution. That takes 38 states, and the small states are never going to have California, New York, and Illinois, and a couple other states run everything all the time. And of course, we work against it, Save Our States, where I work, we work against the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which has been passed by 17 legislatures and signed by 17 governors. And what it says is, no matter how the voters of our state vote, we will tell our electors to vote for whoever wins the national popular vote. And it won't go into effect until they have 270 electors. They have 209 in the compact. But the irony is, if they had already been doing that last November with those states, the 17 states, then Mrs. Harris would have gotten only 12 electors because Trump won the national popular vote, and therefore all those 17 states, their electors would have to vote for Trump even if even if New York or California had voted for Mrs. Harris, which they did. So it's sort of the National Popular Vote Compact has really assumed that, gee, Republicans will never win the national popular vote again. And then Mr. Trump did it. So we defeated that thing in Michigan and in Nevada this year. And I think partly because of that reality.
Help me to understand something, because I'm actually living in the Carolinas, Charlotte, North Carolina. My show was actually there for 8 years. So I have a lot of heart there. My son and daughter-in-law live there as well. They live in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. Now, the prior election we had didn't make any sense to me. Maybe you can help me to understand this, because we're now at a pivotal point in this country where it's basically 50-50. Half the country is Democrat and half going to be Republican.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot more coming to the Republican side, maybe, if we can have some hope in that. But my point is that particular election, okay.
About 2020?
Yeah, in 2020, think about
that. Yeah.
Okay, so the governor is he's a Democrat all the way. I mean, but the lieutenant governor is a conservative. Most people now seem to vote straight ticket. So I'm trying to figure out how you could have such a conservative lieutenant governor, but then a total liberal governor. Yeah. It just seems a little fishy to me.
So I've run for office for 4 times and I've been elected the 3. The first time was when I was 20 years old as a college student. I was elected a county board member in DeKalb County, Illinois, where I went to college. And I went to every door. It was a 6-to-1 Democrat district. I went to every door, just about. And my opponent, who was a campus Methodist minister, he had a beard, and it was the anti-war days of Vietnam and all that. He didn't campaign very much because he said, this kid's not going to beat me. I beat him by 37 votes, so it's sort of a landslide. But a week after I got elected, I was in the grocery store to buy some frozen corn. And a young lady, elderly lady, was standing next to me doing the same thing. And I said, hello. And she said, I remember you and I voted for you. Oh, well, thank you very much. And she said, do you want to know why? I said, why did you vote for me? She said, because when you came to my door, you knocked on the door and then you turned sideways so I could get a good look at you. And you stood back. When that man that was running against you came, he knocked on my door and he stared through the window with his beard and he scared me and I would not open the door for him. And I said to myself, politics is emotional. And so my guess is there are lots of people that say, gee, I'm a Democrat or Republican, but this one I just can't vote for. And so I think I don't live in North Carolina, so I've never given it a thought, but my guess is that governor is a pretty attractive personality, and or his opponent was not at all an attractive personality. And because personality makes a big difference in the world. And so that's my guess, but I don't live in North Carolina. So,
but I still say, though, there's something fishy about that, because, and I'm saying this because I have a lot of crazy family members who are liberals. And it's just that they always say, I would never vote for anybody in the Republican system ever.
I see. Yeah.
I vote straight ticket. And I'm just saying that I'm that way. I would never vote for anybody Democrat. I have to wonder about them. So I'm just saying I vote straight ticket. Yeah. And local elections, national elections, whatever we have, I vote straight ticket. And I think most people do now. I just find it odd that same election, you have a very liberal governor elected, and then you have a very conservative lieutenant governor. And overwhelming votes. So I'm just saying that's just strange.
Yeah, but I do think I'm pretty sure in Georgia, the very popular governor there, Brian Kemp, got more votes than Trump did by probably 5 or 10%, because he's very popular. So I think there's enough crossover. We're going to find out in New York. We have a socialist now, a person that wants global intifada, has the Democratic nomination in New York City. And we're going to see if the Democrats in New York, who are their majority, are really going to elect somebody who has those strong feelings toward the Jewish state and the Jewish people?
Well,
We'll find out. I don't know.
Things are pretty much off aside. I have a friend who lives in Long Beach, California, and she's actually with the Newscaster Studio, and that's where my podcast actually airs. And she said, you would be amazed. Before the last election, she said, normally Liberalville. I mean, she said, you'd have seen, if had this been a few years ago, you'd have seen a lot of Kamala Harris signs. She said, I saw a few. So she and one of her friends were actually driving through Malibu, and they were noticing the Trump signs. And she said, did I die and go to heaven? I mean, she said, because there were just Trump signs all over the place. And she said, it's mainly what she sees is it's seating inside the government, where you have the governor and you have the mayors and those, but the real folks out there were actually wanting to vote for Trump.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. The voter perception of their interests, but it works pretty well for us. You know, I have to say it's not always a perfect thing, and we do fail sometimes. By the way, the 2020 election, it was only the second time in American history that the two presidential candidates tied for states. Biden got 25 states and Trump got 25 states. I think it's happened only one other time when we were half the size of our republic. This time, Trump won 31 states. My gosh. And so that was a pretty decisive win. When Trump defeated Hillary Clinton, you know, he lost by 2.5 million votes, but he got 30 states. And when Bush v. Gore, when Bush defeated Gore, even though Gore got, I think it was 500,000 more votes, all from California, by the way, that's always the difference. George W. Bush won 30 states there too. So we've only had two presidents that haven't won the majority of the states. That's Jimmy Carter and John Kennedy.
So odd how things happen. You know something, we're a little bit late. Let's go into a commercial break, but we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Everybody hang in there.
All right.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
We are back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. That's why we have Michael Miabach with us right now. Michael, this is so interesting right here. We're digging in a little bit more, and I would like to have you on future shows. We need more than 30 minutes. I mean, we're an hour. This is not enough. And I'm pretty sure when folks watch this show, they're going to be sending questions as well. So folks, go ahead and send emails. If you're going ahead and send those to me, Donna at donnasedge.com, Donna at donnasedge.com. You can find us syndicated nationwide on Abundant Television, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com, all the social media sites there as well. Some of you still watch us on Facebook, and we're proud of that. Understand, I don't want to get you fired at work for watching me when the show airs at 2 p.m. on the Eastern time zone. So, watch us any way you can. And if it's Facebook Live, I'm fine with that too. Again, thank you so much for being with us. So we're talking about the Electoral College. Are you seeing, because we have a old is new and new is old is the way I look at everything. But do you think we're new enough in the way we reason nowadays? I know my grandmother always had this saying: if something didn't go quite right and she questioned someone on something she did, she always said, "Well, in the name of common sense."
Right.
That a lot. Do you feel like we're losing a little bit of common sense out there because
Yeah.
things are just not quite right?
Right. So the wonderful thing about America, lots of wonderful things about America. One is that we are a religious people historically, although that's about 50-50 these days, which is another discussion. But the founders were conservative. And the word conservative is a very special thing. It's a mindset. It's not an ideology. Socialism, communism, other things are ideology, which is we're going to take human nature and try to force something. Like boys can be in women's sports. That's an ideological, not a conservative thing. But conservatives are all about learning from the past, cherishing what's good about the past, making sure you don't make the mistakes of the past, respecting the human condition and our nature. One of the things I say to students when I talk with them, I speak to a lot of colleges and even high schools, is how many here think they're a conservative? And a certain number raise their hand, others don't. And I say, well, how many feel that man's nature is broken? And we're always have been and always will be imperfect. And almost all of them raise their hand. And I say, well, then you're all conservatives. Because to understand that man's nature is imperfect and can't be improved is understand there are limits to what government can do to improve us. And unfortunately, the project of the left is to use government to change everybody rather than have them live what we would say is a natural way to look at life, right? And so the founders have the world's oldest constitution because it's conservative in nature. It respects the broken nature. The reason we're free in America is not because we're perfect or that we have a great government, but we have a great design in our Constitution, which is checks and balances. So you notice that the Republicans right now have the House and Senate, and you could say the Supreme Court because they had the most appointments, although the court is not supposed to be political necessarily. But the response on the other side, the opposition, Mr. Trump, is filing court cases about every 7 minutes. There's another district court judge jumping and trying to slow down that train. So the checks and balances are being used right now in that manner. Now, if the Democrats take over the House or Senate next election, then they'll stop everything, right? And so the great thing about our system is if you're unhappy with the election results, give it 2 years and you can have another shot at it. And so people have hope. And in the meantime, you can file court cases and give speeches and do all kinds of things because we have free speech and free assembly.
Michael, we're going to have to go. I can't believe 30 minutes just flew by. Hang around after the show and let's get you set up for next month.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, an hour this time. Thank you again for being with us, Michael. Real quick, how can folks get in contact with you if they have questions or would like to have you speak?
Yeah, my email is here. Save Our States is our organization. I speak for free all over the country. And I do also video speeches to groups sometimes. And I live in Virginia, and I have a home in Florida in the winter, which is required by law because I'm over 65 now. So you have to go there. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I'm 66 now. I just turned 66. So I found, a few perks there. Again, Michael, thank you for being with us. And thank you guys also for watching Donna's Edge television talk show. You can find us on the website, donnasedge.com. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Donna. Thank you. God bless.